Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tell Me About It. We're so thankful that you joined us this week. I'm Sarah.
I'm Liz, and this week we're diving into expectations. And we've titled this Christians for Hire because when you start looking for a job, and you're on Google or wherever, you start looking at the expectations. You want to know what kind of stuff are you going to have to do, or will you be expected to do, and you have to know what are you willing to do. And so this kind of ties into what we talked about on our previous episode, talking about saying yes and no and what that looks like. So we're so excited to dive into expectations because sometimes it can be a thief of our joy, just like comparison.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it can really be the reason that we get our feelings hurt, or we lose faith in God or in other people. So I'm going to dive right in.
Do it, girl.
You know, one of the first things that I thought about when I started looking at expectations is, first of all, what a blessing it was when I finally got to the point in my life where I stopped placing so many expectations on other people.
Wow.
And I gave that up to God.
Yes.
And I realized that me being upset with others, upset with whether that's like my parents or friends or professors or whoever it was, especially while I was in college, is I realized that I was putting expectations on other people that they never agreed to.
Wow.
And I had a youth come up to me once and say, the key to happiness is lowering your expectations. And I kind of laughed it off at first, and I was like, that's actually kind of true. That doesn't mean you lower your standards, but when you're putting expectations on other people that they never agreed to, and then they don't fulfill what you think they ought to do, you get hurt.
Isn't that the truth?
You get your feelings hurt.
Yes.
Whether that be by God because he didn't answer the prayer you wanted him to answer, or whether that's by a friend for not showing up when you thought they ought to have shown up.
Yes, because an expectation is a belief that something would happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the one most clearly that I think of is, like, let's just say that I'm going to pick on Hunter for a second because he's not here today. So, but I know he'll listen. So let's say that I have this idea in my mind that Hunter should always take out the trash.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's my expectation of him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he should always do that for me because he knows I take out the trash. Well, if I've never communicated this with Hunter, which I wouldn't because I don't want to come across as bossy or
Mm-hmm.
naggy, and he doesn't take out the trash, then I'm harboring up bitterness,
Yes.
letting it steal my joy, when really it was something that I made up myself,
Mm-hmm.
a belief and a faith that I was putting in something that hadn't been communicated, that wasn't even tangible, or something that Hunter was even aware of. So I've completely ruined a little part of my relationship
Mm-hmm.
in the moment, letting it steal my joy, letting it harbor up bitterness because of an expectation of something so small.
Right.
We do this to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We do this to God. We do this to other people because how many times have we prayed for something
Mm-hmm.
and I expect God to answer my prayer in
Mm-hmm.
one way, but if you know God, he has his sovereign, awesome, faithful way of doing things that may not seem so sovereign, awesome, and faithful to us
Mm-hmm.
if we're not getting our prayer answered the way that we want it answered, because of course we know everything,
Right.
So our expectation of God and our concept of him is
Mm-hmm.
changed because our expectation wasn't met the way that we thought in that
Right.
time period. And that's toxic, guys.
It really is. It's very toxic, and how terrible it is not only to harbor resentment against, whether that's your husband or a friend or a family member, but against God for not doing what you wanted him to do, but while also claiming to know that he's all-knowing and that he's in control. And that's what can get us in trouble. But when it comes to our expectations, they can either stress you out or they can bless you. And when I'm thinking about how expectations can stress you out, think about if you decided to go to the optometrist and you're at the eye doctor and suddenly your dentist is there deciding that he's going to work on your eyes. That's going to have to be a no from me, dog. Like, not going to work. Like, don't touch me. Like, you know nothing about eyes.
Right.
And that's because you expected your eye doctor to be there working on your eyes. And it was it's agreement when you go there that they're an expert, that they know what they're doing, that you trust them, that they're going to do right by you, and that you're going to pay them in return. But when your dentist shows up, suddenly it's not so cool. That's kind of how God can feel whenever he has set up a plan for us, and we show up and we're not willing to do what he's called us to. But then we suddenly expect, even in that situation, we show up not doing what God called us to, but still expecting the same results.
Right.
I'm just going to let you know, if your dentist is working on your eyes, chances are you're not going to get the same results.
No.
And the Lord's not going to be able to bless you fully whenever you constantly come to Him expecting these grand things. It's kind of like wanting caviar on a peanut butter and jelly budget. That's kind of what we're talking about here. But you definitely, whenever you're coming to the Lord, and with those expectations, don't forget that He also has things that He's expecting of you to do. But here are the things that that God has called and that He said that we can expect. The Lord has already told us that He will carry our burdens,
wow.
that we have no need to worry, that we have grace and mercy abundantly, that He loves us despite our flaws,
yes.
that we're forgiven, that we're supported, that He has plans to prosper us, that He's going to guide our steps, that He's bringing good, that He's going to protect us, that He's doing good by us. So sometimes His no's are a yes to something greater,
right.
That He's going to answer our prayers, that He's going to guide us. He's already told us over and over in His Word that He's going to do these things for us, and
yes.
that it's okay for us to expect those things from Him. And you will never be let down by God. We don't serve
right.
a fickle God. He is absolute in His decisions and in His truth.
Mm-hmm.
But we also need to remember that, regardless if it's a big thing or a little thing, that He's expecting things from us as well. And those
yes.
things are clearly lined out in His Word. And this is where we get into how God is blessing us, is when we are able to do the things that He called us to. I mean, literally, He's not asking for us to do a lot to reap
right.
the benefits. I mean, we're talking about on this side, on where we are, you just have to do these few things. And He knows we're not perfect. Yes, you're going to mess up, but don't forget that when we're talking about paradise. Paradise is our reward.
Yes.
But when you're expecting Him to continue to bless you, and for example, I saw a funny meme. I love memes, y'all. And it said, let me just tell you right now, the Lord's not going to bring you somebody else's husband. And how real is that in today's society?
What?
And I mean, one, that it's a meme, that someone has to say it. But I want to remind you that the Lord is not going to bring you something that's not yours.
Right. That's true, y'all.
And even though you expect Him to bring that, when you're not willing to hold up your end of the bargain and do what you're supposed to do, how can He trust you with something big if He can't trust you with something small?
Yes. Will you please give the example
yes.
of the child's toy that we were talking about?
Yes. Think about if there's a child and you had an expensive toy, like the Barbie doll of the year that they got.
Yes.
And it cost an arm and a leg, and you gave it to this child, and they played with it so nicely. They took care of it. They were respectful of the expensive toy and still enjoyed playing with it. Would you hesitate to get them another? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But if you got an expensive toy and you didn't take care of it, you left it out in the yard in the rain, let the dog chew on it, forgot it places, messed it up, tried to burn its hair off, cut all of its hair off or something like that. I'm just thinking about me as a child. I would never do that, but I was horrified by the children that would. But I'm just thinking to myself, if I did that to a very expensive doll, would my parents buy me another one?
No, they wouldn't.
They wouldn't. God is only going to give you what He knows you're going to do right with for the moment. And I'm not saying that the Lord is testing you, but He's giving you an opportunity to prove that you can handle more.
That's true.
He's a gentle God. Remember that. That He's never going to come and force all these things onto you that you need to do this, and this. But He's looking for an opportunity to bless you.
Yes.
And when it comes to those expectations, we can't expect that God's going to give us $10 million when you can't even handle the $10,000 that you have.
Yeah, that's so true.
Why would He? And so I think it's so important that when we come to our expectations, there's a level of honesty that you need to have. Not only with with God, but yes, not just with God, but with yourself.
Yes.
And if you are wondering, ask your friends. Ask your friends of faith. Have a mentor in your life and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I don't feel like God's answering my prayers. Will you help me reflect on this? Will you be in prayer with me about this? Seek God, because He's there and He hears you. And don't get it twisted. I can't say this enough. A wait is not always a no. Sometimes it just means it's like not right now. And we're talking about if red light versus a yellow light, instead of you going cautiously, and I'll give the example, when I was getting ready to purchase my house, God told me that I need to stop looking. And
yes.
This was just a month before I had to let my landlords know at my apartment that I needed to be out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have enough time to look if this isn't, like, if I'm not looking right now. And God said, no, I want you to stop looking. So I stopped going to houses to actually look at them and things. And but I would still look at them online and whatnot. And the Lord said, I said to stop looking.
Wow.
And so I said, okay, I hear you loud and clear. I stopped looking.
And y'all, she did. I lived this with her.
It was so stressful because I love to be in control of those moments. Mm-hmm. But even though I stopped looking, even though I did not want to, but afterwards I found a house and I was like, oh, this is great. Someone else got it. I found another house that was even greater. Someone else got it. And I was thinking, Lord, what in the world? And my dad was so dead set on me getting a standalone house. And he said, I tell you what, you remember that whatever is yours by God. And no one can take it away from you.
Yes.
And I remembered that I can expect God to hold up his end of the bargain every single time.
Absolutely.
And that
He's faithful.
He is. When I do right by him as well.
Absolutely.
And so by having patience like he called me to have, on the last day, the day before I had to tell my landlords that I was moving, I found the house that I own now. And the Lord has blessed me abundantly. It's closer to work. Everything, the mortgage was cheap, far cheaper than I imagined. And the Lord has used this house for me to host my Bible study in a place that's not too far away, where the other locations were too far away.
And y'all, we're sitting here right now. We're at Liz's house.
So, like,
it's crazy.
The Lord is faithful, but I expected the Lord to be faithful, and he also expected me to be patient and obedient.
Yes.
And so
the exchange was worth it, was it not?
The exchange was more than worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Far more than I would have ever imagined. But just don't forget that he has expectations of you, and that it's okay to expect things of him as well.
Yes.
But every time, 100%, you can expect that God has his best interest for you. And that if you're willing to do this 10%, God says, hey, I got you way more.
He's a God of multiplication.
He is. Praise God.
He ain't just adding, he is multiplying.
He is. And he'll do it every time. And we serve a Father that wants to do that for you.
That's how much he loves us.
It's not a burden to him to bless you.
No.
He wants to bless you.
Yes.
He wants to give you more and more, but you also have to be obedient, because don't forget that what you do with the time that you have, that first of all, anything you have is God's anyways. So what you do with it is a reflection of him, because you have his name. You carry his name with you.
Yes.
And so if he sees that you're not doing right by that, why would he give you more?
Yes.
And this is not to scare you or discourage you, but this is to remind you and to be encouraged that God has great plans for you, and that it's okay to expect him to show up in the moments when things aren't going your way.
Yes.
And that it's okay for him to expect him to even challenge you in certain instances when because he's trying to grow you. If you're expecting a comfortable life as a Christian, honey, I don't know what to tell you.
Don't get too comfortable.
Yeah, just don't.
But it's all worth it. That's the
Every
thing.
time.
And I feel like what we have done, and what I often do with things that God has given us, like an expectation is a form of faith. It's a belief that something's going to happen. We have expectations that pertain to people. We have expectations that pertain to God, and then we have them that pertain to ourselves.
Yes.
And what we've done is we've picked up the wrong ones, and we're refusing to pick up the right ones. I need to expect that my God is faithful, and he has the perfect plans for me at the perfect time. But instead, I'm picking up the pressure of expectation of other people. So it's all what you're choosing to put your energy of faith into.
Yes.
Liz and I were talking earlier about how even culture can be so drowning.
Yes.
In expectation. I remember as soon as Hunter and I started dating, oh, is there a ring anytime soon? Okay, we get engaged. When's the wedding? We get married. When are y'all having a baby? Then we graduate college. When are you going back to get your master's? I'm like, oh my goodness, this pressure is unbelievable. But just like we said in the saying, yes, tell me about it. When we know who we are and who God is and how those mesh together, the pressure is off.
Yeah.
Because our goal is meeting God's expectations, following His plan, doing His will and His way every single day. And I feel like with that, the expectation that God will be faithful, the expectation that I don't have to worry about this finance, because if God has called me through it, He will make a way through it.
Yes.
And He always does. Just like with Liz, He had a way better than she could have ever planned herself. Better location, better budget-wise, better timing, and all that she had to do was wait on Him and act when He spoke to her heart and said, this is it. This is what you need to do. And it's so hard in the moment, but would you have changed anything looking back?
No, and you know, the crazy thing is the first time I got to host Bible study in this house, God reminded me of a promise He made to me a year and a half ago. He said, Elizabeth, I want you to put down roots here. And other opportunities came up, and I thought that it was for me, and I followed God anyways, and things didn't pan out, and I didn't know what He was doing, but I put my full trust in Him because I knew that I could and that it would be for my good. Yes. And then here we are a year and a half later. You couldn't have told me that at my age and as a single person that I would be purchasing a home on my own. That's crazy. That doesn't even sound right for where we are in society right now. Yeah. But God said, I'm going to use you if you give me everything. Give me your yeses, like we talked about in our last podcast, but also you can put that expectation on me. I'm not going to let you down.
Yes. And the thing is, where are we shifting that expectation? Are we putting it on ourselves?
Right. It's so
adding stress to ourselves? Are we feeling that stress from others? Or are we going to pick up the expectation from God that He is faithful, that we can lean into Him and depend on Him, because He truly is the only thing that will hold weight against this great expectation that culture and that we put on ourselves. It's insane how we get it so messed up, but once it clicks with the way that we're living our life, like, wow, I have been doing things so messed up, and God wants to take that burden and take that stress from you and trade it. Like, you know, He gives us beauty for ashes, and I love that, because when I think of ashes, I think of something that has just been through the fire. That's literally what creates ashes. And I think of the pressure that I put on myself and the heat that I put on myself. But He wants to trade that in for us. Trade your expectations and have a spirit of expectation facing toward God.
Yes. That
He is able, that He is willing, and that He will come through. I think that it's all where we shift our expectations.
Because sometimes we can have a fear that He's not going to do what we want Him to, but whenever you're asking God for His will, He has no problem answering those prayers.
True.
In His perfect timing. You know, one of the verses that I wanted to share with you all, I'm reading out of the Message version today, Ephesians 3, verses 20 and 21. Let me scroll on down.
So good, y'all.
God can do anything you know, far more than you could ever imagine or guess or request in your wildest dreams. He does not by pushing us around, but by working within us, His Spirit deeply and gently within us. You know, I found this to be so beautiful because, like we said so many times, God is a gentleman, and He says that He wants to answer everything, and that it's okay. You know, once again, God wants you to have His best.
Yes.
He wants that for you, and it's okay to expect that when you do right by God, when you are obedient by Him, that He will reward you. You can expect that. His promises, they hold up. You can put your stock in God every single time.
Yes.
But I want to remind you that you have to do that first.
Yes.
You actually have to put forth the effort. And we talked about last time as well about that has a piece of security.
It does.
When you're letting go of those expectations. And you know, it can be so hurtful sometimes. And when you find that you are hurt in a situation, this is one of the greatest things, honestly, the greatest lessons that has blessed me as far as just other relationships, friendships, family, relationship, anything, is realizing in the moments of when I get upset, am I upset at God? Am I upset at that other person? Or am I upset with myself? because I expected them to do something that I never asked of them? Or am I upset with God for not answering a prayer I never prayed for?
Wow.
Am I expected because I didn't have enough faith when he called for me to, so I prayed for 10% when he had 100% for me?
Don't cap it.
Don't cap God. He's here. He wants everything for you, far more than you imagine, guess, request, more than your wildest dreams.
Wow. That's amazing. And I love how it goes on to say that the Holy Spirit gently moves when the expectations of our culture, I feel like, are so loud and so aggressive and so pushy. But when God has something for you and there's an expectation, there's an opportunity there, he's not going to be aggressive or loud. He will gently move you toward that.
Every time.
It's so beautiful.
It really is.
The shift when you see it. If only I could just like start living it like right now.
Hey,
let's do it.
Yeah, you just got to start somewhere. Once again, life it will never be perfect.
Right.
I mean, I can't wait to get on the other side of heaven where it is perfect, but it's worth it.
It is, yes.
Ladies, when we say that you were made for more, we mean that wholeheartedly.
Yes.
God has his absolute best for you. But don't let your own expectations take away how you feel about God or feel about the situations that he's putting you in or anything like that. That can ruin some things as far as when it comes to how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about others. We talked about unrealistic beauty standards that we constantly deal with. Your social media does not have to be perfect.
No.
The things of this world are loud and chaotic. But we serve a God that is gentle and loving and kind and the exact opposite. So don't put worldly expectations on a God that made this world.
Absolutely. I think it's time to jump off the hamster wheel of striving.
Yeah.
Because if we are thriving in God's plan, we won't be going around in circles like I am when I'm trying to meet everyone else's expectations but God's. But we will be moving forward in faith and in that plan. And we'll start to see the fruit of it. It may not come right away, but I believe that there's a heart shift that brings so much peace. Because at the end of the day, if I want to please anybody, it's not myself. Even though I think self-fulfillment is important. It's not anyone around me, even though relationships on this earth are important. The number one is God.
The last thing I want to leave you all with today is a quote from one of my favorite professors in college. And every day before we would leave class, she would make us say pretty much this little mantra. And she said that we would accept the best from others and expect the best from ourselves. Excuse me, other way around. Expect the best from others and accept only the best from yourself.
Yes.
And so that means when you're living your life, don't let yourself settle for anything less than your absolute best. Accept only your best from yourself. And that means that giving that over to God.
Absolutely.
And it is you can expect the best of others, but you can always expect and count on, put your weight on the best from God.
That's
every single time.
You won't be let down.
Never. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us for another week of Tell Me About It. We love you so much. If you have prayer requests or suggestions for next week or any other topics, please let us know. If you're wearing our merch, we want to celebrate with you. We want to see you. Tag us on Instagram. Make sure that you hit our subscribe button. Every Tuesday we're dropping new content. Once again, we love you so much. Thank you for being on this chosen journey. We're proud of you for being here, and we can't wait to grow with you.
Bye, guys. Have a great week.